Honey, here's the card. Buy whatever you want. It has $450,000 on it. My son handed my credit card to my daughter-in-law without my knowledge. She immediately ran off to a luxury car dealership, but when the manager took the card to process the purchase, he suddenly froze and said, "Wait, this is impossible." Before we continue, please subscribe to Granny's Voice channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are watching from now and what time it is there. We might give you a shout out in our next video. Today's shout out goes to Kobu from Uganda. Thank you for being part of this great family. Now, let me tell everything. My name is Vivian. I am 71 years old and those $450,000 didn't appear by magic. Every cent of that money carries the weight of my cracked hands, my sleepless nights, my knees ruined from hunching over a sewing machine. For 40 years, I worked as a seamstress in a tiny workshop where the heat in the summer was unbearable and the cold in winter froze your fingers. I sewed wedding dresses, prom dresses, school uniforms, anything that came my way because my husband and I had a dream to give our son Pierce a life we never had. I remember the early mornings, waking up at 4 in the morning to finish urgent orders. The sound of the sewing machine was the first thing you'd hear in our house, the smell of new fabric mixed with reheated coffee. My husband worked in construction, coming home with his hands full of calluses and cement dust in his hair, but always with a smile for Pierce, always with a kiss on my forehead, telling me, "We're going to make it, Vivian. We're going to make it." And we did. We saved every coin we could. Pierce went to a big state university, graduated as an engineer, got a good job, and married Sienna, a woman with long hair and a loud laugh, who from the very beginning looked at me in a strange way, as if I were a piece of old furniture cluttering up her new house. But I said nothing because my son seemed happy and that was the only thing that mattered to me. When my husband died 3 years ago, I felt a part of me shut down. I was left alone in that big house, full of memories, of laughter, of family dinners, of warm Christmases. Pierce visited me often at first, always worried, always asking, "Mom, are you okay? Do you need anything?" But over time, the visits became less frequent. Sienna always had an excuse, a meeting, a commitment, a headache. I kept working. Not with the sewing machine. My hands couldn't take it anymore. But I managed a small alteration shop we had opened years ago with my husband. Nothing fancy, but it allowed me to live with dignity and kept me busy because loneliness can turn into a monster if you give it too much space. The money I had saved my entire life was in a savings account, untouched, sacred. It was for my old age, for a medical emergency, so I wouldn't be a burden to Pierce. When I could no longer care for myself, I had given my son a secondary card for that account, only for emergencies, only if something serious happened to me and he needed to cover medical expenses or funeral costs. I never thought, never imagined that this gesture of trust would become my worst nightmare. It all started on a Tuesday afternoon. I was at the shop reviewing some invoices when I heard my phone ring. It was an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up the receiver. "Mrs. Caldwell, this is Felix Ortega. I'm the manager at Premium Motors. I don't know if you remember me." The name hit me like a lightning bolt. Felix Ortega. That skinny kid with sad eyes who used to come to my workshop decades ago with his mother, a housekeeper who brought me clothes to mend. I taught him to read, gave him used books, told him to study, that education was the only way out of poverty. "Felix, of course I remember you. How are you, son?" I said, a smile in my voice. "I'm well, thanks to you, Mrs. Caldwell. You changed my life. But I'm not calling about that. I need to talk to you about something urgent right now. There is a woman in my dealership trying to buy a luxury car with your credit card. She says she's your daughter-in-law. Her name is Sienna." I felt the air leave my chest. My daughter-in-law Sienna buying a luxury car with my card. The card that only Pierce had for emergencies. "There must be a mistake, Felix," I said, my voice trembling. "I didn't authorize any purchase." "I know, That's why I called you. When I saw your name on the card, I knew something wasn't right. She says your son gave her permission that you're fine with it, but I needed to confirm with you before processing a transaction for $85,000. $85,000. The words echoed in my head like an explosion. Sienna trying to spend $85,000 of my money. The money that cost me 40 years of sacrifice, of pain, of going without. Felix, don't authorize anything. Please, I need to go there. Give me the address. I'm coming immediately. I hung up the phone, my hands shaking. I clumsily closed the shop, almost forgetting my keys. I grabbed my purse and went out to the street. The afternoon sun hit my face, but I felt neither heat nor cold, only an icy fury growing in my chest. The entire way in the taxi, questions hammered at my mind. How did she dare? How could Pierce give that card to Sienna without asking me? Without telling me? Did I no longer matter? Was my money theirs now? I arrived at the dealership. It was a huge place. All glass and bright lights, imported cars gleaming like jewels in a display case. I had never entered a place like this. I felt small, out of place. But I took a deep breath and pushed open the glass door. Felix was waiting for me at the entrance. He had grown so much. He was no longer that skinny kid. Now he was a tall man in an impeccable suit. But when he saw me, his eyes were still the same, warm, grateful. Mrs. Caldwell, thank you for coming, he said in a low voice. She's in the office looking at papers for the car. I haven't processed anything yet. Where is she? I asked with a calm I didn't feel. Felix pointed toward a glass office at the back. And there I saw her, Sienna, sitting with her legs crossed, looking at a car catalogue with a satisfied smile on her face, as if she already owned the world. She was wearing a tight-fitting cream-colored dress, high heels, her hair perfectly styled, her nails freshly done, all paid for, probably with my son's money, with the money I had helped them have. Something inside me broke in that instant. But it wasn't a loud break, not tears or screams. It was something cold, something sharp, like glass hardening. I walked toward that office, each step measured, each breath controlled. And when Sienna looked up and saw me, her smile froze on her face. Vivian, what are you doing here? Sienna said in a voice that tried to sound casual, but I could see her fingers tighten around the catalogue. How her eyes searched for an exit, an excuse, a quick lie. I came to see what's going on, I replied without raising my voice, without showing the storm raging inside me. Why are you using my card, Sienna? She let out a nervous laugh and stood up, smoothing her cream dress, as if that gesture could erase the evidence of what she was doing. Oh, Vivian, don't worry. Pierce told me I could use it. He said you were fine with it, that you wanted us to buy a new car. Ours is getting so old, and you know how the traffic is. We need something safer, more reliable. Pierce told you I was fine with it. I repeated the words slowly, savoring the lie in her mouth. Yes, of course. He gave it to me this morning. He said it was a gift from you to us, that you wanted to help us. Sienna held my gaze, but I could see the cracks in her performance, the glint of panic in her eyes, the way her right hand trembled slightly. Felix was standing by the door, observing the scene in silence, his face professional. But I knew he understood exactly what was happening. He had grown up seeing this kind of manipulation, had seen his own mother exploited, cheated by employers who promised to pay her and never did. Sienna, I looked my daughter-in-law directly in the eyes and lowered my voice to an icy whisper. I never authorized this, and my son had no right to give you that card without consulting me first. But Sienna's face changed in a second. The sweet daughter-in-law mask crumbled, and what was left underneath was something ugly, something resentful. Oh, please, Vivian, don't make a drama out of this. That money is just sitting there doing nothing. You're already old. What are you going to do with so much money? Buy medicine for your knees. Live another 10 years alone in that huge house. It's a loss. It's a waste. We're young. We have projects. We have a life ahead of us. Pierce is your only son. That money is going to be his someday anyway. Why not use it now when we really need it? Every word was a slap. Every sentence a knife twisting in my chest. But I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I just watched her like you watch a wild animal showing its fangs for the first time. So that's the plan, I said in a calm voice. Wait for me to die to take what I worked my whole life for. Or better yet, spend it all now so when I need something, there's nothing left. Sienna crossed her arms and her voice rose. Don't make it sound like we're thieves. Pierce is your son. He has a right to that money. You gave it to him yourself. You gave him the card. For medical emergencies, I said curtly. For if something serious happened to me, not for you to buy an $85,000 car as if you were some queen. It's not just a car. It's an investment. Sienna argued with that twisted logic only manipulators understand. Besides, you live alone in that giant house. You could sell it, move somewhere smaller, save on utilities and maintenance, and give us that money. We have real expenses. Children to plan for, a future to build, children to plan for. The words hit me because Sienna and Pierce didn't have children. They never talked about having them. She always said her career came first, that children were a burden. So, what children was she talking about? What future? I realized in that moment that Sienna didn't just want my money. She wanted my house. She wanted everything I had built. She wanted to erase me from the equation, turn me into a nuisance that needed to be removed as quickly as possible. Felix cleared his throat softly and said, Sienna, I need you to excuse me for a moment. I must speak with Mrs. Caldwell about some details of the account. Sienna frowned, but nodded. I followed Felix out of the office toward a small private space at the back of the dealership. My legs were trembling, but I didn't let myself fall. Not yet, Mrs. Caldwell, Felix said in a low voice. When I saw the name on the card, I knew something was wrong. You taught me that hard-earned money is sacred, that no one has the right to take it without permission. I'm not going to process this purchase. Not without your signed and notarized authorization. Thank you, Felix, I whispered, feeling tears threatening to spill. But I held them back. Thank you for calling me. He put a hand on my shoulder kindly. There's something else, This isn't the first time they've tried to use your card. What do you mean? I asked, my heart speeding up. Felix took out his phone and showed me a record. On 2 previous occasions, in the last 3 weeks, there were purchase attempts with that card at high-end clothing stores and a jewelry store. The transactions were declined because they exceeded the daily limit you have set, but the attempts are registered here. I felt the floor move beneath my feet. 3 weeks. Sienna had been trying to use my card for 3 weeks without my knowledge, without Pierce saying anything to me. I need copies of those records, I said in a firm voice. I already printed them for you, Felix nodded. I knew you'd need them. He handed me a manila envelope. Inside were all the receipts, all the proof of the attempted thefts, because that's what it was, a theft. I went back to the office where Sienna was still waiting now, talking on the phone with someone. Probably Pierce. When she saw me walk in, she hung up quickly. So, what did you decide, Vivian? Are you going to authorize the purchase, or are you going to ruin this moment for us? She asked, her tone somewhere between pleading and threatening. I took the papers out of the envelope and placed them on the desk in front of her, one by one. Each receipt, each declined attempt, each registered date. Sienna turned pale. What is this? She stammered. This, I said with a terrifying calm, is the proof that you have been trying to steal from me for weeks. That this wasn't Pierce's idea, that you took that card and decided to use it as if it were yours. That's not. I just Sienna searched for words but couldn't find any that could save her. I leaned over the desk, getting closer to her until our faces were inches apart, and whispered in a voice I didn't even recognize as my own. You are going to walk out of this dealership right now. You are going to give me back that card, and you are going to pray that I don't decide to call the police. But Pierce, she started to say. Pierce, I interrupted, is not here. Pierce doesn't know what you've really done. And when he finds out, when I show him this proof, we'll see if he still thinks you're the perfect wife he believes you are. Sienna looked at me with pure hatred in her eyes. The entire veneer of the loving daughter-in-law had vanished. You're a bitter old woman, she hissed. That's why you're alone. That's why no one visits you. Pierce only goes to see you out of obligation, out of pity. Her words should have hurt me, should have broken me. But instead, I felt something different. I felt absolute clarity because I was finally seeing the truth, unfiltered, without lies, without the illusion of a happy family I had tried so hard to maintain. Give me the card, I said, holding out my hand. Sienna hesitated for a moment, as if she still believed she could win this battle. But then she reached into her purse, took out my card, and threw it on the desk in anger. "This isn't over," she threatened. "Pierce is going to know you humiliated me, that you ruined our plans." "Pierce is going to know the truth," I replied, taking the card and putting it in my purse. "And then he will decide whose side he's on." I walked out of that office with my back straight, my head held high. Felix walked me to the exit, and before I left, he told me, "Mrs. Caldwell, if you need anything, if you need me to testify about what happened today, I'll be here." "I know, Felix," I said, touching his arm affectionately. "I always knew you'd go far." I took a taxi back home. The whole ride, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just watched the city pass by the window, while my mind worked, processed, planned, because something had changed in me in that moment, in that dealership. I was done being the silent victim. I got home as the sun was setting, long shadows stretching across the garden my husband had planted decades ago. The rose bushes he cared for so lovingly now grew wild but beautiful. I opened the door and the silence greeted me as always. That heavy silence of a house too big for one person. But this time the silence didn't scare me. It gave me space to think. I sat at the dining room table, the same table where we had celebrated birthdays, Christmases, where Pierce had done his homework as a child, where my husband and I had planned our future. I took out the documents Felix had given me and spread them out in front of me. Each paper was evidence, each data deception, each declined attempt to betrayal. The first attempt had been 3 weeks ago at a high-end clothing boutique. $2,200 declined for exceeding the daily limit. The second attempt, a week later, at a jewelry store, $5,800 declined again. The third, 4 days ago, at an exclusive spa, $3,500 also declined. And today, the most brazen attempt of all, $85,000 for a car Sienna wanted to show off to her social circle. I picked up my phone and dialed my bank's number. I needed to talk to someone, needed to protect what was left of my assets. The operator answered with a kind voice. And when I explained the situation, she transferred me to the security department. We need you to come in first thing tomorrow morning to block that secondary card and review all the movements on your account. An executive named Desmond told me. I also recommend you consider making changes to the authorized beneficiaries. If fraud is suspected, we must act quickly. I'll be there at 8 o'clock in the morning, I replied, jotting down the appointment on a piece of paper. After hanging up, I stared at the phone. I knew I should call Pierce. I knew I had to confront him. But something stopped me. I needed to be sure. I needed to have all the facts before talking to him because my son wasn't bad. My son had been a good kid, an exemplary student, a hard-working man. But Sienna had changed him slowly, like poison acting drop by drop until you no longer recognize the person in front of you. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake in the living room with only one lamp on, looking at the photographs on the wall. Pierce as a baby in my arms. Pierce on his graduation day with his cap and gown, smiling proudly. Pierce on his wedding day with Sienna. She dressed in ivory. He looking at her as if she were the only thing in the world. And me in the corner of the photo, smiling, but with something in my eyes, something I now recognized as worry. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I heard a car stop in front of my house. Hurried footsteps in the yard and then loud banging on the door. My heart sped up, but I didn't move. I waited. "Mom, open up, please." It was Pierce's voice, agitated, almost desperate. "Mom, I need to talk to you." I got up slowly, walked to the door, and opened it. Pierce was there, his hair messy, his shirt wrinkled, his eyes red. Behind him, a few yards away, Sienna was sitting in the car, arms crossed, looking the other way. "What happened, Mom? Why did you do that?" Pierce said without even saying hello. "Why did you humiliate Sienna in front of all those people at the dealership?" "Come in," I said in a firm voice. "We need to talk." Pierce entered like a hurricane, pacing back and forth in the living room, gesturing with his hands. "Sienna called me crying. She told me you treated her horribly, that you accused her of being a thief in front of the manager, that you took the card away from her like she was a criminal. Mom, how could you? I sat on the sofa and pointed to the chair opposite me. Sit down, Pierce. I don't want to sit down. I want you to explain what happened. Sit down, I repeated in a tone that allowed no argument. It was the same tone I used when he was a child and did something dangerous. And it worked. Pierce sank into the chair with the expression of a scolded child. You gave my card to Sienna without consulting me, I began in a calm voice. The card I gave you only for medical emergencies, for if something happened to me, not for your wife to buy a luxury car. But Mom, that car is a necessity. Our car is already 10 years old. It breaks down every other week. We need something reliable. $85,000 is a necessity, I asked, raising an eyebrow. Pierce shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Well, it doesn't have to be that exact model, but Sienna saw that car and loved it. And I thought you'd be fine with it. I thought you'd want to help us. Why did you think that, Pierce? Why did you assume I would just give away $85,000 without anyone asking me? Because you're my mother. Because that money is going to be mine someday anyway, he said. And in that moment, I saw Sienna speaking through his mouth. Those were her words, her twisted logic, not my son's. I took the documents out of the envelope and put them on the coffee table. Look at this, I said. Pierce took the papers and began to read. His expression changed from irritation to confusion and then to disbelief. What is this? Those are the purchase attempts Sienna made with my card over the last 3 weeks without my knowledge. Without your knowledge, apparently. Luxury clothes, jewelry, a spa, and today a car. Each time larger amounts. Each time more brazen. Pierce shook his head. No, this has to be a mistake. Sienna wouldn't do this. She did, I said, my voice breaking. Your wife tried to steal from me for weeks, Pierce. And when I confronted her today, she didn't deny anything. She just told me I was old, that the money was a waste, that I should give it to you too. Now, my son fell silent, staring at the papers as if they were lies, as if he could make them disappear with the force of his denial. But the numbers don't lie. The dates don't lie. I gave it to her, he finally admitted, his voice barely audible. I gave her the card a month ago because she said we needed to buy things for the house that you had said we could use it. I never said that, Pierce. I never authorized you to give that card to anyone. Pierce ran his hands over his face as if trying to wipe away reality. She told me. She told me you had spoken to her, that you had offered to help. I believed her, Mom. She's my wife. Why wouldn't I believe her? Because she lied to you, I said, feeling the words tear me apart. Because she manipulated you. Because she used you to get to my money. Don't say that, Pierce shouted, standing up. Sienna loves me. She wouldn't do something like that. Then explain these documents, I challenged him, pointing to the papers. Explain why she tried to spend over $10,000 on purchases she didn't need. Explain why today she tried to buy a car without consulting me, without asking my permission, without even telling me. Pierce walked to the window and stood there looking out where Sienna was still in the car waiting. I'm going to talk to her. I'm going to ask her. There has to be an explanation. The explanation, I said sadly, is that your wife only sees my money as something that belongs to her, something she can take whenever she wants. The explanation is that to her, I'm just an obstacle between you two and a life of luxury. That's not true, Pierce whispered. But his voice no longer had conviction. Son, look at me, I asked. Pierce turned around, his eyes wet, full of confusion, of pain. I worked 40 years to save that money, I continued. Your father and I sacrificed. We lived with the bare minimum so you could study, so you could have opportunities we never had. That money is for my old age, for my health, so I'm not a burden to you when I can't care for myself. It's not for luxury cars. It's not for whims. I know, Mom. I know, Pierce said, his voice cracking. Forgive me. I didn't think. I wanted to make Sienna happy. And what about my happiness? I asked. What about my peace of mind knowing I have a safety net for emergencies? Pierce sank back into the chair and put his face in his hands. I ruined everything, didn't I? Not yet, I said firmly. But you need to make a decision. You need to talk to Sienna and decide what kind of man you want to be. The man your father and I raised, or the man she is molding. He looked up. What are you going to do now? Tomorrow I'm going to the bank to block that card, review my account, and protect what is mine, I replied. And I'm going to consult with a lawyer about how to proceed legally. A lawyer? Pierce repeated, panic in his voice. Mom, please don't do that. We're family. Family respects, I murmured. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't lie. Family doesn't try to take advantage of a 71-year-old woman who worked her entire life. Pierce sat in that chair for what seemed like an eternity, staring at the documents as if waiting for the words to change, for the numbers to be erased, for it all to be a nightmare he could wake up from. But reality doesn't change just because you ignore it. And my son was learning that lesson in the most painful way. I need to talk to her, he finally said, standing up. I need to hear her version. Her version, I replied wearily. Pierce, she didn't deny anything when I confronted her. She just justified herself. She just told me I was old and that the money was a waste in my hands. But go ahead. Go and hear what she has to say. My son walked to the door with slow steps, as if each movement was a heavy weight. Before leaving, he stopped and looked at me over his shoulder. I'm sorry, Mom, he whispered. I really thought I was doing the right thing. Doing the right thing would have involved asking me first, I said. Not harshly, just sadly. It would have involved protecting me, not exposing me. Pierce nodded and left, closing the door softly behind him. I got up and walked to the window, hiding behind the curtain to watch what would happen outside. He walked to the car. Sienna rolled down the window and they started talking. I couldn't hear the words, but I could see the gestures. Pierce pointing at the house, waving the documents he had taken with him. Sienna shaking her head, gesturing with her hands, her face transforming from worry to indignation to fury. The argument escalated. Sienna got out of the car, shouting something I couldn't hear. Pierce stepped back as if her words were physical blows. She pointed toward my house, toward me, as if I were the villain in this story, as if I were the one who had done something wrong. Then Sienna got back in the car, slammed the door, and sped off, leaving Pierce standing in the middle of the street under the yellowish light of the lamppost. My son stood there alone, watching the car's tail lights disappear into the night. And in that moment, I truly saw him. I saw him as the scared little boy he once was when he got lost at the farmer's market and cried until I found him. As the confused teenager who didn't understand why his first love had left him. As the man who now faced the reality that he had chosen the wrong person. I didn't go out to comfort him. I knew he needed that moment. He needed to feel the weight of his decisions. After a few minutes, Pierce walked back to my door and knocked softly this time. No urgency, no demands. I opened it and he walked in. His shoulders slumped, his gaze lost. He sank onto the sofa and covered his face with his hands. She says, "You're exaggerating. That this is all a misunderstanding. That I misinterpreted you. That you had said we could use the money for whatever we needed." "And you believed her?" I asked, sitting across from him. Pierce lowered his hands and looked at me with red eyes. "I don't know what to believe anymore, Mom. She's my wife. I've been with her for 5 years. How can I think she would lie to me like this? Because the evidence is right in front of you, son," I said softly. "Because the numbers don't lie. Because the purchase attempts are registered. Because when I confronted her, she didn't deny it. She only justified it." "I know," he whispered. "I know. But accepting that it means accepting my marriage is built on lies. It means accepting that the woman I share my life with has been using me." Pierce's voice broke, and for the first time in years, I saw my son cry. Not a gentle cry, but a deep sob, the kind that comes from your chest. When I understood Dad was gone, he wept. I cried like this when they told him he had cancer that there was nothing they could do. I cried like this in the hospital next to you holding your hand. I got up and sat next to him on the sofa. I put my hand on his shoulder like I used to when he was a boy, when he had nightmares, when the world seemed too big and frightening. "It's not your fault," I said. "Manipulative people are experts at making others trust them, at making you feel like you're the problem if you doubt them. But I should have seen it, Mom. I should have realized, Pierce said, wiping his tears on the back of his hand. How many times must she have disrespected you when I wasn't around? How many times must she have spoken ill of you behind my back? Many, I admitted. But I didn't want to tell you anything because you seemed happy and I just wanted you to be happy. Happy? He repeated bitterly. How can I be happy knowing I chose someone who tried to steal from you, who saw you as a bank, who treated you like an obstacle? Life gives us tests, son, I said wearily. And sometimes we fail. But what's important is what we do after we realize the mistake. Pierce was silent for a long time, looking at his hands. Finally, he spoke, his voice quiet. What are you going to do, Mom? Are you going to press charges? I don't know yet, I answered honestly. First, I need to protect my assets. I need to make sure this never happens again. And then I'll decide what's next. And me. What do I do? He asked desperately. Do I go home tonight? Do I pretend nothing happened? That decision is yours, Pierce, I said firmly. But if you go back and you do nothing, if you let Sienna convince you that I'm the bad guy, that this is all a misunderstanding, then you won't just be betraying me. You'll be betraying yourself. My son nodded slowly. He stood up and walked to the door. Before leaving, he stopped. Can I stay here tonight? He asked. I don't want to go back right now. Your room is still just as you left it, I replied. Pierce went up the stairs with heavy steps, and I stayed in the living room with the documents scattered on the table with the heavy silence of a house that had seen too many secrets revealed in one night. The next morning, I woke up early as always. By 6, I was dressed in my best clothes, a grey suit I had bought years ago for special occasions. I pulled my hair back into a bun, put on the pearl earrings my husband had given me for our 20th anniversary. I needed to look strong. I needed to look serious because today I wasn't going to the bank like a scared old woman. I was going as a woman defending what was hers. Pierce came down at 7, his face swollen from crying, his shirt wrinkled because he had slept in it. I'm going with you, he said, not asking. I need to see everything. I need to understand how much damage she caused. I nodded. We left for the bank together. The drive was silent, each of us lost in our own thoughts. When we arrived, Desmond, the executive who had spoken to me on the phone, was waiting for us in his office. He was a young man about 35 years old with glasses and a serious expression. Mrs. Caldwell, thank you for coming, he said, shaking my hand. I reviewed your account last night, and I found some things you need to see. He sat in front of his computer and began to show me transactions. Besides the declined purchase attempts you already know about, there were cash withdrawals from ATMs. Small amounts, $200, $300 each over the last 6 weeks. Always in areas near luxury shopping centers. How much in total? I asked, feeling my blood run cold. $8,700, Desmond replied. All made with the secondary card you authorized in your son's name. Pierce went pale next to me. $8,700, he whispered. I didn't know anything about that, Mom. I swear it wasn't me. I know, son, I said, squeezing his hand. Because I know my son. I know his schedule, his routine, and these withdrawals were made on days, and at times when he was at work. Desmond nodded. That's why I called you, When I saw the attempt for $85,000, I knew something was very wrong. The spending patterns didn't match the profile of the secondary card holder. Mrs. Caldwell, I need you to file a formal fraud complaint. We need to block that card and issue a new account with new numbers, new access. Do it, I said without hesitation. And I want my son removed as a secondary card holder. Mom, Pierce protested. It's for your protection, son, I explained. If Sienna has access to your information, if she knows your passwords, your data, she can keep trying to use your name to steal from me. I need to cut all ties. Desmond prepared the necessary documents. I signed every paper, every form, every declaration. Pierce watched in silence with an expression of absolute defeat. When we finished at the bank, it was almost 11 in the morning. Desmond handed me a folder with copies of all the transactions, the complaints, the new account documents. He also recommended the name of a lawyer specializing in family fraud, a Tobias Vaughan, who had an office a few blocks from the bank. He has handled similar cases, Desmond said discreetly. Cases where relatives abuse the trust of seniors. It's painful, but more common than you'd think. Seniors, I repeated the word bitterly. Is that how they see me now? As a helpless old woman they can rob without consequences. No, Mrs. Caldwell, Desmond replied firmly. You are not helpless. You proved that yesterday by stopping that purchase, by coming in today to protect your assets. Many people in your situation stay silent out of fear, out of shame, out of not wanting to accept that their own family is stealing from them. But you acted, and that takes courage. His words gave me strength. We left the bank and Pierce walked beside me in silence, his hands in his pockets, his gaze lost on the pavement. We're going to see the lawyer, I said. It wasn't a question. Pierce nodded. I need to know how bad this is. I need to know what's going to happen. Tobias Vaughan's office was on the 3rd floor of an old but well-maintained building. A secretary greeted us kindly and showed us into a waiting room with brown leather chairs and landscape paintings on the walls. After a few minutes, a man of about 50 came out to greet us. Graying hair at the temples, dark suit, a serious but not cold expression. Mrs. Caldwell, I'm Tobias Vaughan, he said, shaking my hand. Desmond called me this morning and briefly told me your situation. Please come in. We entered his office, a tidy space full of law books, diplomas on the walls, family photographs on the desk. We sat in front of him and I took out all the documents I had brought. I spread them on the desk like evidence of a crime I still found hard to accept. Tobias reviewed each paper in silence, taking notes occasionally, frowning when he saw the amounts. After a few minutes, he looked up and met my gaze. Mrs. Caldwell, this is financial fraud, plain and simple, he said in a professional voice. Your daughter-in-law used information and access she obtained through your son to make unauthorized transactions, the ATM withdrawals, the purchase attempts. It's all documented. You have a solid case. What are my options? I asked in a firm voice. Tobias leaned back in his chair. There are 2 paths. The first is to file a criminal complaint for fraud and financial elder abuse. This would involve a police investigation, possible arrest of your daughter-in-law, a legal process that could last months. The second path is to handle this civilly. Recover the stolen money, establish restraining orders, legally protect your assets without necessarily sending anyone to prison. And which do you recommend? Pierce asked, his voice trembling. Tobias looked at him with compassion. That depends on you as a family. It depends on whether you believe there can be reconciliation or if you need to completely cut ties. It depends on how far you're willing to go to protect yourself. Pierce covered his face with his hands. I don't want my wife to go to prison, he whispered. But I can't ignore what she did either. I can't pretend this didn't happen. No one is asking you to pretend, I said softly. But we need to protect ourselves. We need to make sure this doesn't happen again. Tobias picked up a pen and began writing on a legal pad. My recommendation is that we start with the civil path. We establish a temporary restraining order that prevents Sienna from approaching you, Mrs. Caldwell, or your bank accounts. We begin a process to recover the stolen money, and we prepare legal documentation to protect your assets. An irrevocable will, clear powers of attorney, everything necessary so no one can manipulate your finances in the future. And if she doesn't return the money, Pierce asked. Then we escalate, Tobias said firmly. Then we press criminal charges. We use the full weight of the law. But let's first give her the chance to do the right thing. Sometimes when manipulators realize their victims have legal support, they back down because they know they've lost. How long will all this take? I asked. Weeks, maybe months, Tobias replied. But with every day that passes, your assets will be more protected. Every document we sign will be one more barrier between you and any future attempt at abuse. Then let's do it, I said without hesitation. Do whatever is necessary. Tobias nodded and began preparing the documents. While he worked, I looked out his office window at the street below. People walked by in a hurry with their normal lives, oblivious to the drama unfolding on this 3rd floor. oblivious to a 71-year-old woman fighting for what was hers by right, by sacrifice, by decades of work. Mrs. Caldwell, Tobias said, pulling me from my thoughts. I need you to tell me everything from the beginning. Every interaction with Sienna, every suspicious comment, every moment you felt something wasn't right. So I told him everything from the day Pierce introduced me to Sienna 6 years ago at a family dinner where she had shown up in an eggplant-colored dress too elegant for a casual get-together, where she had evaluated my house with calculating eyes, commenting on the property value, on how large it was for one person. I told him about the Christmases where she made comments about inheritances, about how unfair it was that the money was just sitting there unused. I told him about the time she suggested I sell the house, move into a nursing home, give them the money to invest it better. Pierce listened in silence, and with every anecdote I recounted, his face crumpled more because he was seeing for the first time the pattern I had tried to ignore. The pattern of manipulation that had been there from the beginning. She always said those things like jokes, Pierce murmured as if it were funny, as if she wasn't serious. I laughed. I thought she was just being practical. Manipulators always disguise it as practicality, Tobias said, writing notes. They disguise it as advice, as concern, but underneath there's always a personal agenda. I finished telling my story, and Tobias had pages full of notes. This is enough to start, he said. I'm going to prepare all the legal documents. I need you both to come back tomorrow to sign the restraining order and the new estate documents. In the meantime, Mrs. Caldwell, do not speak to Sienna. Do not answer her calls. Do not open the door if she comes to your house. Any contact could complicate the case. Understood. I replied. And me? Pierce asked. Can I talk to her? Can I try to get her to return the money? Tobias looked at him seriously. You can, but I don't recommend it right now. She will try to manipulate you. She will cry. She will make promises. She will blame your mother. She will play the victim. You need to be prepared for that. You need to stay firm. I don't know if I can, Pierce admitted, his voice cracking. I don't know if I'm strong enough. Then don't talk to her yet, I said, taking his hand. Give the legal process time. Give yourself time to process everything you've discovered. Time to decide what kind of life you want to have. We left the lawyer's office with more documents, with more weight on our shoulders, but also with a plan, with a strategy, with the feeling that we were finally doing something to stop the abuse. The midday sun was bright, almost blinding when we stepped out onto the street. Pierce walked with me to a small cafe on the corner. We need to eat, he said, even though I'm not hungry. We need to sit for a moment. We sat at a table by the window. We ordered coffee and sandwiches that we barely touched. The place was almost empty, just a young couple in a corner, laughing, sharing a dessert, oblivious to our heavy silence. Mom, Pierce said finally. How did we get here? How did I let things get this far? Because you trusted, I replied. Because love makes us blind. Because you wanted to believe in your marriage. And there's nothing wrong with that. The mistake wasn't yours. The mistake was hers for abusing that trust. But I gave her the card, he insisted. I opened the door for her to rob you. Under false pretenses, I said firmly. She lied to you. She manipulated you. She made you believe I had authorized it. You are a victim here, too, son. Even if it's hard for you to accept. Pierce shook his head. I'm not the victim here. You're the one who lost money. The one who was betrayed. I was just stupid. Both things can be true at the same time, I replied. You can have been naive and still be a victim of manipulation. We drank our coffee in silence, each lost in thought. After a while, Pierce spoke again. I'm going to divorce her, he said in a firm voice. I don't know when, I don't know how, but I can't stay with someone who did this. I can't wake up every morning next to someone who tried to destroy my mother. Don't make hasty decisions, I advised, though my heart leaped with relief to hear his words. Take your time, process all of this, and then decide. I've already decided, he said, looking me in the eyes. I decided the moment I saw those documents, the moment I understood it was all a lie. Mom, forgive me. Please forgive me for not seeing, for not protecting you, for choosing her over you. There's nothing to forgive, I said, squeezing his hand on the table, though tears threatened to spill. You did what you thought was right. You loved the wrong person. That's not a crime. It's just a tragedy. But I hurt you, Pierce whispered. I let her hurt you. And that's unforgivable. Forgiveness isn't asked for, son. It's earned, I replied softly. And you're going to earn it by staying by my side now. By helping me protect what's left. By being the man your father and I raised. Pierce nodded, wiping his tears with a napkin. I will be, Mom. I promise. I'm not going to leave you alone in this. We finished our coffee and left the cafe. The day was still bright, but something had changed in the air, as if a storm were brewing in the distance. I took Pierce back to my house and he stayed with me that afternoon, working from my living room on his laptop, checking emails, answering calls from his job, but always close, as if he were afraid that if he left me alone, something terrible might happen. At 5 o'clock in the evening, my phone started ringing. It was a number I didn't have saved, but I recognized it immediately. Sienna's number. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. 30 seconds later, it rang again and again. I let it go to voicemail. This repeated 7 times until she finally gave up. Check the voicemail, Pierce said. We need to know what she's saying. I put it on speakerphone and we listened to the messages one by one. The first was her sweet fake voice. Vivian, it's me, Sienna. Please pick up. I need to talk to you. There was a misunderstanding yesterday. Let me explain. The second was already more urgent. Vivian, you can't just ignore me like this. We're family. We need to solve this like adults. Call me, please. The third showed frustration. This is ridiculous. Pierce isn't answering. You're not answering. What am I supposed to do? You're blowing this all out of proportion. I didn't do anything wrong. The fourth was pure manipulation. Vivian, I know you're angry, but think about Pierce. Think about what this is doing to him. He's suffering because of you. Because you can't forgive one simple mistake. You're his mother. You're supposed to want his happiness. The fifth showed her true colors. You know what? Enough of this. That money was going to be ours someday anyway. I just took it a little early. What's the big deal? You're already old. What are you going to do with all that money? Buy yourself a golden casket. Don't be ridiculous. The sixth was threatening. If you don't answer, I'm coming to your house. I'm going to knock on that door until you open it. We are going to talk whether you like it or not. You can't hide from me. And the seventh, the last one, was the most revealing. Pierce, if you're listening to this, you need to understand that your mother is manipulating me. She's making me look like the bad guy when I was just trying to help us. She wants to separate us. She wants you to be alone, just like her. Don't let her win. Come home, please. Pierce closed his eyes, an expression of physical pain on his face. This is how she always is, he said. When she doesn't get her way, first she's sweet, then she plays the victim, and finally she attacks. How did I not see it before? How was I so blind? Because she's good at what she does, I replied. Because she spent years perfecting her technique. Save those messages, Pierce said with determination. Tobias said we needed evidence of everything. Well, there it is. Sienna threatening, harassing, showing her true face. That night, I made dinner. Something simple. Vegetable soup and toast. Pierce and I ate in silence, each processing the day's events. After dinner, he washed the dishes while I reviewed the documents Tobias had given me. There was so much to read, so much to understand. Legal clauses, complicated terms, but the most important thing was clear. I was protecting my future. I was setting boundaries that no one could cross. At 9 o'clock in the evening, we heard a car stop in front of the house. Then, rapid footsteps in the yard and loud banging on the door. Vivian. Pierce, open this door. I know you're in there, Sienna was shouting. I need to talk to you. This is insane. Pierce looked at me, panic in his eyes. Don't open it, I said firmly. Remember what Tobias said. No contact. But she's out there, Pierce insisted. She's going to wake the neighbors. She's going to make a scene. Let her, I replied. That only gives us more evidence of her unstable behavior. The banging continued. Vivian, I know you're in there, Sienna screamed. I know you have my husband in there. You can't do this. You can't separate us. Open the door now. Pierce walked to the window and pulled the curtain back slightly to look outside. Sienna was on the porch wearing a salmon-colored dress, her hair loose, her eyes bright with rage. She was pounding on the door with both hands like a possessed woman. I'm calling the police, I said, picking up my phone. Wait, Pierce said. Let me talk to her first. Let me try to calm her down. Tobias said not to, I reminded him. I know, but I can't just leave her out there. What if she hurts herself? What if she does something worse? Pierce walked to the door, and before I could stop him, he opened it. Sienna almost fell forward from the force she had been using to bang on it. She stopped, seeing him, an expression of relief mixed with triumph. Pierce, thank God, she said, trying to hug him. I needed to see you. I needed to explain. Pierce took a step back, avoiding her embrace. You need to leave, Sienna. Now. What? She said, incredulous. I'm not leaving until we talk. Until we fix this. Your mother is filling your head with lies. They're not lies, Pierce replied, his voice firm. I saw the documents. I saw the withdrawals. I saw everything, Sienna. You used my mother's card without permission. You tried to steal from her. Steal, Sienna repeated with a hysterical laugh. She's my mother-in-law. That money was going to be ours someday. I just used it a little early. What's the problem? The problem is that it's not your money, Pierce said, raising his voice for the first time. The problem is that you lied. You manipulated me. You used me to get to her. Sienna switched tactics in a second. Her eyes filled with tears. Her voice became soft, vulnerable. Pierce, baby, please. Don't say that. I love you. I just wanted nice things for us. I just wanted us to have a better life. Your mother has so much and we have so little. It's not fair. She worked 40 years for that money, Pierce responded. It's not her fault we don't have as much. It's our responsibility to build our own life, not steal it from her. I can't believe you're taking her side, Sienna said. And now the sweetness was gone, leaving only venom. Choosing her over me, over your wife. I'm choosing me over a lie, Pierce corrected. I'm giving you a chance to do the right thing, to apologize, to return the money, to get help. Help. Sienna repeated with contempt. You think I'm crazy. You think I need a shrink. I think you need to understand that what you did was wrong, Pierce said wearily. I think you need to accept the consequences. Sienna looked at him with pure hatred. Consequences, she whispered. You want to talk about consequences? Fine. If you make me leave, if you continue with this farce, you will regret it. I'm going to tell everyone that your mother is a manipulative old hag who is ruining our lives. I'm going to say you prefer her over your own wife. I'm going to destroy your reputation. Go ahead, Pierce said, his voice like cold steel. Do what you want, say what you want, but get out of this house now. Sienna took a step toward him, her fists clenched. You can't throw me out of. Pierce took out his phone and dialed a number. The police dispatcher answered on the second ring. Yes, I need to report a person who is refusing to leave a private property after being asked to go. Sienna's eyes widened in shock. You're calling the cops on me, on your wife. I'm protecting my mother, Pierce replied. Something I should have done from the beginning. Sienna looked at me, standing in the living room doorway with an expression of absolute hatred. This is your fault, she hissed. You poisoned him against me. You destroyed my marriage. I didn't destroy anything, Sienna, I replied calmly. You dug your own grave. I just refused to let myself be buried in it with you. We heard the sirens in the distance, getting closer. Sienna looked toward the street, then at Pierce, then at me. This isn't over, she threatened. You're going to pay for this, both of you. She turned around and walked quickly to her car, speeding off just as the patrol car turned the corner. The officers stopped in front of my house, and Pierce went out to talk to them. He explained the situation, showed them the threatening voicemail messages, told them about the attempted fraud. The officers took notes. One of them, an older man with a serious expression, told me, "You have the right to request a temporary restraining order. With this evidence, a judge will approve it without any problem." "I already have a lawyer working on it," I replied. "Thank you, officer." When the police left, Pierce closed the door and leaned against it, his eyes closed. "I never thought it would come to this," he whispered. "I never thought I'd call the police on my own wife." "You did the right thing," I said, walking over to him. "You protected yourself when she tried to manipulate you. You stopped her when she became threatening. That takes strength, son." "I don't feel strong," Pierce said. "I feel shattered. Being shattered and still doing the right thing. That is true strength," I replied. That night, Pierce slept in his old room, the same one where he had grown up, where he had dreamed of his future, where he had studied for his exams. I lay awake in my bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the house creaking in the darkness, thinking about everything that had happened in the last 48 hours. My life had taken a complete turn. From being a lonely woman trying to keep the family peace to being someone who had drawn a line in the sand and said, "This far and no farther." The next morning, we returned to Tobias's office. He already had all the documents prepared, the temporary restraining order against Sienna, the new papers for my will, which clearly specified that Pierce would only inherit if he met certain conditions, that no spouse would have direct access to the funds, power of attorney documents establishing who could make decisions for me if I became incapacitated, everything designed to protect what I had left. I signed each paper with a steady hand. Pierce signed as a witness, his face somber but determined. When we finished, Tobias gave us copies of everything and explained the next steps. "The restraining order will be filed with the judge today," he said. "Sienna will be officially served. She will not be able to approach either of you. She will not be able to contact you by any means. If she does, she will be arrested. I have also begun the process of recovering the money. She will have to legally answer for the $8,700 she withdrew. And what if she doesn't have the money?" Pierce asked, his voice trembling. "What if she already spent it all?" "Then we will establish a payment plan," Tobias replied. "Or we will garnish her assets, her accounts, whatever is necessary. Mrs. Caldwell, that money belongs to you, and we are going to get it back." "Thank you, Tobias," I said, feeling for the first time in days that I could breathe. We left the lawyer's office, and the weight on my shoulders felt a little lighter. Pierce took me to lunch at a small diner we used to go to when he was a kid. The place hadn't changed much. The same wooden booths, the same mismatched chairs, the same smell of homemade food. We ordered and ate in silence until Pierce finally spoke. "I need to find a place to live," he said. "I can't go back to that house. Not yet. Maybe never. Stay with me," I offered immediately. "As long as you need. Your room is still there." Pierce shook his head. "Mom, I can't do that. I've already caused you enough pain. I'm not going to become your burden now." "You are not a burden," I insisted. "You are my son and you're going through something difficult. Let me help you just like you are helping me." Pierce looked at me with damp eyes. "Thanks, Mom. But I need to do this alone. I need to prove to myself that I can rebuild my life without depending on anyone." I understood what he meant. I understood he needed that space to heal, to find himself again. "All right," I said. "But promise me you'll come for dinner at least twice a week. Promise me you won't pull away." "I promise," he replied with a small smile, the first real smile I had seen on his face in days. The following days were strange. Sienna was officially served with the restraining order. According to Tobias, she had received the documents at her job, had made a scene, yelling that it was unfair that she was being treated like a criminal, but the order was in effect. Any contact with Pierce or me would result in her immediate arrest. Pierce found a small furnished apartment near his work. He moved in with just 2 suitcases of clothes because everything else was in the house he had shared with Sienna. The house that now felt contaminated with lies. I helped him get settled, bringing him new sheets, towels, some basic dishes. Things a mother does to make sure her son has what he needs. One afternoon, while I was organizing his small kitchen, Pierce sat on the sofa and said, "Mom, I need to tell you something." I sat next to him, my heart pounding. "What is it?" "I've been reviewing our joint bank accounts. Sienna's and mine," he said in a tense voice. "I found more things. Expenses I didn't remember authorizing. Purchases at stores I've never been to. ATM withdrawals in places I've never been." "How much?" I asked, feeling the rage build in my chest again. "Another $6,000, Pierce replied, covering his face with his hands. "Over the last year, while I was working, while I thought we were saving for our future, she was spending in secret on things for herself. Clothes, jewelry, expensive dinners with her friends." "Do you have proof?" I asked. "I have the bank statements," he replied. "I've already sent them to Tobias. He says this strengthens the case that it shows a pattern of deceptive financial behavior. Sienna hadn't just stolen from me, she had stolen from her own husband. She had betrayed the one person who had given her all his love, his trust, his life." "I'm so sorry, son," I said, hugging him tightly. "Why are you apologizing?" "You're the victim here," Pierce said. "Because I didn't see this sooner," I replied. "Because I didn't say anything when I saw the warning signs. Because I wanted to believe I was wrong. That I was just a paranoid mother-in-law." "No, Mom. You did say things. You tried to warn me, but I didn't want to listen." Pierce pulled away from the hug and looked at me directly. "The blame is mine for being blind, for choosing the easy path of ignoring the truth." 2 weeks passed. The restraining order was still in effect. Sienna hadn't tried to contact us directly, but Tobias informed us she had hired her own lawyer, someone who was trying to negotiate, arguing that it had all been a misunderstanding, that she had a right to use the money as family, that I was exaggerating. Sienna's lawyer sent a letter offering to return $3,000 of the $8,700 as a gesture of goodwill in exchange for me dropping the complaint and the restraining order. Tobias called me to discuss the offer. "Mrs. Caldwell, it's your decision," he said. "But in my opinion, this is a tactic. Accepting this would be admitting she has some right to your money. It would be letting her get away with it partially." "I reject the offer," I said without hesitation. "I want all my money back. Every cent. And I want her to understand that there are consequences for her actions." "Excellent," Tobias replied with satisfaction in his voice. "I was hoping you'd say that. I will inform them that she either returns the full amount or we proceed with criminal charges." That night, Pierce came for dinner as promised. I made his favorite meal, the stew his father used to ask for on Sundays. We ate together, talking about simple things, about his work, about my customers at the shop, about the neighbors who asked about me, avoiding the topic of Sienna, avoiding the pain just for a little while. After dinner, while we were washing the dishes together, Pierce said, "Mom, I've been thinking a lot about the future, about what kind of life I want to have." And I realized something. "What's that?" I asked, drying a plate. "I want to be like you," he replied. "I want to have your strength, your dignity, your ability to stand up for what's right, no matter how much it hurts." For years, I tried to please Sienna, to avoid conflict, to keep the peace. But that just turned me into someone weak. Someone who allowed the person I love most in the world to get hurt. I don't want to be that person anymore. Pierce's words filled my heart with a strange mix of pride and sadness. Pride because he was finally finding his way back to himself. Sadness because he had to go through so much pain to get there. I hugged him tightly right there in the small kitchen with the water running in the sink, the smell of home-cooked food still floating in the air. "You already are that person," I whispered in his ear. "You proved it when you defended me. When you called the police, when you decided to rebuild your life." Pierce pulled away from the hug and looked at me with determination. "Tomorrow, I'm filing for divorce," he said in a firm voice. "I've already spoken to Tobias. He recommended a specialized divorce attorney. I want to end this once and for all. I want to close this chapter completely." "Are you sure?" I asked, though I knew the answer. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," he replied. Sienna had so many chances to do the right thing. To apologize, to return the money, to show even a little remorse, but instead she threatened us. She hired a lawyer to negotiate as if this were a game. I can't stay married to someone like that anymore. I can't wake up every day wondering what else she lied about, what else she deceived me in. I support whatever you decide, I said, squeezing his hand. But be prepared. It's not going to be easy. She's going to fight. She's going to try to take half of everything. She's going to do everything she can to hurt you. I know, Pierce said. But I don't care anymore. Let her take whatever she wants. The furniture, the car, whatever. None of it is worth more than my dignity, than my relationship with you, than my peace of mind. 2 days later, Pierce filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences and financial abuse. Sienna was served, and according to Pierce's lawyer, she had ripped up the papers in front of the delivery person, screaming that this was a betrayal, that Pierce would regret this. The situation escalated quickly. Sienna started posting distorted versions of the story on social media, claiming her manipulative mother-in-law had separated her from her husband, that Pierce was a weak man controlled by his mother, that she was the real victim. Some people who didn't know the truth believed her. They left supportive comments, calling me a witch, calling Pierce a traitor. Pierce showed me the posts, his face pained. This is horrible, Mom. She's making up lies. She's making us look like the villains. Ignore it, I advised, though I was boiling inside. The people who matter know the truth. The ones who believe her without even asking for our side aren't people we need in our lives. But she's ruining my reputation, Pierce protested. My colleagues at work are seeing this. My friends are asking me what happened. Then tell them the truth, I replied calmly. Tell them your wife tried to steal from your 71-year-old mother. Tell them she used your trust to commit fraud. Tell them that when she was confronted, she threatened and harassed instead of apologizing. The truth is always stronger than lies. Pierce followed my advice. He spoke to the important people in his life. He showed them the documents, the proof, the threatening messages from Sienna. Slowly, the narrative began to change. People started to understand that Sienna's dramatic social media posts were just that. Drama designed to manipulate public opinion because she had lost the legal battle. Meanwhile, Tobias kept pushing for the return of the money. Sienna's lawyer tried to negotiate again, this time offering $5,000 and a promise to pay the rest in monthly installments. No, I said when Tobias called to inform me. I want the full amount now, or I proceed with criminal charges. I'm tired of her games, her negotiations, her lack of responsibility. Very well, Tobias replied with approval. I will inform them they have 1 week to return the full $8,700, or we will file fraud charges with the district attorney's office. That week was tense. I waited every day for an answer, a sign that Sienna was finally going to do the right thing. But the silence was absolute until the last day at 5 in the evening. Tobias called me. Mrs. Caldwell, I have news, he said in a tone I couldn't decipher. Sienna's lawyer just transferred the full amount to my trust account. $8,700. It's back. I felt the air leave my lungs in a long sigh of relief, of victory, of justice. She finally paid, I asked, almost unable to believe it. She paid. Tobias confirmed. Tomorrow I can transfer the money back to your bank account. Mrs. Caldwell, you won. This wasn't easy, but you did it. I hung up the phone and sat in the silence of my living room. The money was back. Not all the pain, not all the emotional damage, but at least the tangible part. The part that represented decades of my work. It was protected again. I called Pierce to tell him the news. He was at my house in less than 20 minutes, his eyes shining with emotion. Mom, you did it, he said, hugging me tightly. You got your money back. You showed her that no one can take advantage of you. No, son, I replied. We did it together. You supported me. You defended me. You stood by me when I needed you most. This is a victory for both of us. We celebrated simply that night with a quiet dinner, with a glass of wine my husband had saved for special occasions. We toasted to justice, to family, to starting over. The following days brought more news. The divorce proceedings were moving forward. Sienna had finally accepted that there was no way to save the marriage. Her lawyer was negotiating the division of assets. Pierce didn't fight for anything. He let her keep the house, the furniture, everything they had bought together. He just wanted his freedom. He wanted to close that chapter and never open it again. A month later, the divorce was finalized. Pierce came to my house with the signed papers in hand, an expression of peace on his face that I hadn't seen in years. "It's over, Mom," he said, sitting on the sofa. "I'm officially no longer married. I have no more ties to her. I can start over." "How do you feel?" I asked, sitting next to him. "I feel free," he replied. "Like a huge weight has been lifted off my shoulders. Like I can finally breathe without feeling like someone is controlling every aspect of my life. Mom, I lost years with her. Years I'll never get back. But at least now I have the rest of my life to do better. And you will," I assured him. "Because you learned the hardest lesson anyone can learn. That true love doesn't manipulate. It doesn't steal. It doesn't destroy. True love protects, respects, and elevates." Pierce nodded and then said something that surprised me. "I want to go to therapy, Mom. I need to understand how I got to that point. How I allowed someone to manipulate me so easily. How I missed the signs. I want to work on myself so I'm never that blind again." I felt proud to hear those words because taking responsibility for your own healing is the first step toward true transformation. "That's very wise, son," I said. "I've also been thinking about seeking help, about talking to someone about all this. Because even though I won the legal battle, I still carry the emotional pain, the betrayal, the feeling that I failed to protect myself sooner." "You didn't fail, Mom," Pierce said firmly. "You trusted, and that's not a failure. It's a beautiful quality that someone abused that trust. That's their fault, not yours." The weeks passed and life began to find a new rhythm. I continued working at my alteration shop. Pierce came for dinner twice a week as promised. Sometimes 3, sometimes 4. Slowly, we were rebuilding our relationship, cleaning it of the lies and manipulation that Sienna had sown between us. 3 months after all the drama, the legal battles, the tears and betrayals, my life had found a strange but welcome calm. It was as if after a devastating storm, the sun finally came out and I could clearly see the landscape that was left. Some fallen trees, some broken branches, but the earth was still fertile, still capable of blooming again. One Saturday afternoon, while organizing some old boxes in the attic, I found photographs of when Pierce was little. His toothless smile, his scraped knees, his gaze full of innocence and trust in the world. I remembered the little boy who would hug me tightly when he had nightmares, who told me that when he grew up, he would always take care of me. And I realized that boy had come back. Not physically, but in essence, the man he had become was finally fulfilling that promise to take care of me, to protect me, to be by my side. I came down from the attic with the photographs and put them in new frames in the living room, replacing some that included Sienna, slowly erasing her from my space, from my life, like you erase a persistent stain with patience and determination. It wasn't revenge. It was healing. It was reclaiming my home as a place of peace, not bitter memories. Pierce arrived that evening with a surprise. He had bought tickets to a classical music concert, something his father and I used to enjoy together, but that I had stopped doing after his death. "I thought we could go together," he said with a shy smile. "Like you and Dad used to. It's time to create new good memories, Mom. Memories that aren't contaminated by everything that happened." We went to the concert that night. Me in my lavender dress that I hadn't worn in years. Pierce in an elegant suit. We looked like a couple from another era. A mother and son rebuilding their relationship on the rubble of betrayal. The music was beautiful. Violins and cellos filling the theater with melodies that made you cry from beauty, not sadness. For those 2 hours, I forgot all the pain, all the anger, all the disappointment. There was only the music, my son beside me, and the feeling that life still had beautiful moments to offer. After the concert, we went to dinner at a small restaurant with candles on the tables and a pianist playing softly in a corner. Pierce ordered wine. I ordered my favorite dish. And we talked like we hadn't in years, without the weight of Sienna between us, without secrets, without lies. Just a mother and her son sharing stories, laughing at old memories, planning possible futures. "Mom," Pierce said as we had coffee after dinner. I want to thank you for not giving up. For fighting for what was yours, for teaching me that it's okay to set boundaries, that it's okay to say no, that it's okay to walk away from toxic people, even if those people are family by marriage. Son, I replied, taking his hand across the table. You taught me something, too. You taught me that it's never too late to open your eyes. That true love means defending the one you love, even when it's hard, even when it means losing something you thought was important. We toasted with our coffee cups, and in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. I felt hope, real, solid, unbreakable. The following week brought more changes. I finally decided to do something I had been putting off for years. Sell the big house, that house full of memories, both good and painful, and move into a smaller, more manageable condo. Something that was completely mine without the weight of the past in every room. Pierce helped me with the whole process. Finding a real estate agent, organizing things, deciding what to keep, what to donate, what to sell. It was a cathartic process, like saying goodbye to an old version of myself to make way for something new, something lighter. The day we closed the sale of the house, Pierce and I stood in the empty living room, our voices echoing off the bare walls. I grew up here, Pierce said nostalgically, his voice thick. I learned to walk here. Dad taught me to ride my bike in the yard here. And here, I said, looking at him tenderly. You learned the most important lesson of all. You learned that home isn't a place. It's the people you love. The people who love you back without conditions, without manipulation. We moved into my new condo, a modern space in a secure building with friendly neighbors with a small balcony where I put the plants my husband had loved. It was a fresh start. No ghosts, no painful memories, only possibilities. Pierce came by often, sometimes just for dinner, sometimes bringing friends, new healthy people who supported him in his healing process. He had started therapy as he said he would, and the change in him was noticeable. He was more confident, more centered, more aware of his boundaries and his needs. One day, 6 months after all the drama, I received a letter in the mail. It was from Sienna, a handwritten letter. For a moment, I considered throwing it away unread, but curiosity won. I opened it and read it. The letter was strange. It wasn't exactly an apology, but it wasn't an attack either. She said she had been in therapy, too, that she was working on understanding why she did what she did. That she recognized she had hurt a lot of people, that she didn't expect forgiveness, but she wanted me to know that the money she had stolen, she had spent it trying to fill a void inside her, a void that no amount of money could ever fill. She ended by saying she hoped Pierce and I could find peace and that she was trying to find hers. I showed the letter to Pierce. He read it in silence, then left it on the table. What do you think? He asked me. I think it's a step, I replied. It doesn't erase what she did. It doesn't change the damage, but at least it's an acknowledgement that she was wrong. That's more than I expected. Pierce nodded. I'm also in a place where I can wish her well. From a distance, he said, I don't want to have contact with her ever again. I don't want a relationship, but I don't wish her harm either. I just want us to each go our own way. And that's exactly what we did. We went our separate ways. Me, with my new life in my condo, with my business growing, with new friendships I made in the building, with the peace of knowing my money was protected, that my future was secure. Pierce, with his therapy, with his work, with his process of rediscovering himself as an independent, strong man capable of loving in a healthy way. 1 year after the day Sienna tried to buy that luxury car with my card, Pierce and I were having dinner at my condo when he gave me another surprise. Mom, I met someone, he said with a shy smile. Someone special. My heart gave a jolt of instinctive worry. But then I saw his face, the peace in his eyes, the confidence in his smile. Tell me, I said. Her name is Meredith, he said. She's a teacher, works with elementary school kids. She's kind. She's honest. She's everything Sienna wasn't. And Mom, the most important part, when I told her my whole story with Sienna, with the divorce, with everything that happened, she didn't run. She didn't judge me. She just listened. And she told me she admired that I had the courage to do the right thing. I'd like to meet her, I said, feeling genuine hope. And you will, Pierce promised, but slowly. No rush. I want to do things right this time. I want to build something solid, something real. Months later, I met Meredith, and I immediately understood why Pierce had fallen in love with her. She was a woman with a genuine smile, a contagious laugh, who treated me with respect from the first moment, who asked about my life, about my work, who really listened when I spoke. There was no calculation in her eyes, no assessment of my net worth, just real human warmth. That day, when Pierce handed my card to his wife, I lost money. I lost trust. I lost the illusion of a perfect family. But I gained something more valuable. I gained clarity. I gained boundaries. I gained the certainty that I can defend myself no matter how old I am. I won my son back, the real one, not the manipulated version. And most importantly, I gained peace. The peace that comes from knowing you did the right thing, that you planted your flag and said, "This is mine, and no one has the right to take it." The chains I lost that day weren't made of money. They were the invisible chains that bound me to being a victim, to accepting crumbs of respect, to allowing abuse disguised as family love. And when those chains broke, I was finally free.